Greetings. Welcome to the DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track Buffy Watch Season 4 discussion. We are going to have a wonderful time, I just know it, talking about this, well, how should we say, often uneven and sometimes problematic season. Look, I can put it that way, and I think that probably no one here would disagree with that assessment. But if you do, I'm sure you will tell me. So that's what we're going to do is talk about it at length. So first up, we will have all of the wonderful panelists introduce themselves. Anna, we will begin with you, please.
Hi, I am Anna Puerta, and I am a volunteer on the Urban Fantasy track, and I also have an MFA in film and television.
Thank you. Jean.
Hi, I'm Jean Stein, and I'm a writer. I've written a couple of urban fantasy series, and I'm a Buffy lover.
That's how we first bonded when we first met, these many years ago. Yeah.
At Georgia, in Georgia, at the
Decatur Book Festival.
Decatur Book Festival.
Yeah, exactly. That was which I haven't been to since I started working at DragonCon, but because it's the same weekend. But
yes.
Carol.
Hi, I'm Carol Stokes. I'm Fire Sign 10 in SBN Fandom, and I've been a Buffy fan since day one. Love it, quote it, live it. And I'm thrilled to do these Buffy rewatches.
Well, thank you. We're thrilled to have you here. Davior.
Hey, everybody. I'm Daviar Snipes, a theater and voice work actor, currently a program director at the Stratford Festival in Ontario, Canada.
Nice. And Marks.
Hey, I'm Marks Pyle. I'm a filmmaker, podcaster, and author of MFA in popular fiction. And I love Buffy. Love it so much that my first short film had an Easter egg reference to the cheese guy in the last episode of the season.
Well, and that was hilarious. You know, we will talk about Restless because it is the season finale, but it just struck me when you said that about how at the end of the episode and Buffy's saying, well, at least you guys didn't all have that cheese guy in your dream. They're all looking at each other like nobody wants to tell the other if they did. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty good. I'll have to watch that film sometime. Now, for our first question, we will have what we always do. This first question is what were some of your favorite episodes or scenes from maybe it's a particular scene out of an episode that you didn't necessarily love the whole episode as a favorite, but you really liked a particular scene. And just to let you know, we are going to talk about Hush, but you could bring up Hush in this because I'm sure that Hush is probably one of everybody's favorite in this particular season because it was so groundbreaking. And what is one episode that you could have done without, whether it's because you don't feel as though it added anything to the narrative of the show, or you just didn't like it for whatever reason. And Anna, we'll begin with you.
Okay. Well, this season has some of my favorite episodes. So I feel like that's just, I'm going to say all of them, but let me get through it. I think obviously Hush is amazing. Get it out there. Something Blue is probably one of my favorite episodes. It's just so funny when we were talking about scenes. I think the scene when Giles first walks in and he is like, what is happening?
Yeah.
That's probably one of my favorite scenes. And he's like, oh, I'm so glad I can't see. Like, you know.
Right. He's like, am I seeing things or wait a minute? No, I can't see.
But he can hear the smacking.
Yeah. Pangs is obviously such a great episode. And it also gives us one of our future Once More with Feeling favorite lines. He got diseases from the Chumash tribe.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I have to love it for that as well. And then I think the episode that I could do without that's a harder one. I think, you know what? I'm gonna say the episode, what is it called? When with Veruca.
Okay,
I
the
just
one.
hate her. There's not really a reason for this. It's just that I just don't like her. And anytime she's on the screen, I'm just like, oh, I don't like you. So
Yeah, New
I
Moon
guess
Rising
I'm gonna
is.
pick it. I don't know. Oh,
But
and
you're
I'll
talking about the episode we find out she is a werewolf.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. When they run off into the woods together.
Right.
Okay. And then I'm gonna do one more. One of my favorite lines, and it's from Beer Bad, when it's fire bad, tree pretty.
Yeah. That is a good one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I took them all for everybody.
I know, there are plenty because after all, it's Buffy, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Jane.
Well, one of my favorites was also Something Blue. That's one of my favorites of this one. But also Superstar. I really liked Superstar because I liked Jonathan. I liked him as a hero. I just thought it was a fun episode. And we got to see somebody besides Buffy being kind of idolized. I mean, even Buffy goes to Jonathan for help. So the initiative, everybody went to Jonathan for help. And I really like that. I like Jonathan from the very beginning anyway. So I enjoyed that. And it's funny that it's Tara that realizes, I think it's Tara first that realizes that something is wrong. And then Adam, of course, makes a comment that the world is, what is it? The world is
wrong.
Wrong. The world is wrong. Yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of the first indication that something is wrong about that. And my least favorite of this is Beer Bad. To me, that was just worthless. That was a worthless episode as far as.
Although it's worth it to see Parker get clunked out twice. Yeah.
Well, I also like talking about lines. I think when Willow says, "Well, are you old enough to be a bartender?" and he shows his ID, and she said, "Well, it's fake." And he said, "How did you know it's fake?" And she said, "Looked at it." Just look at it, and you tell it's a fake ID. But in the Buffy world, anybody can become a bartender regardless.
Right. Yeah, you can sneak your way in there. Right. Yeah. Well, not to mention that the guy he was working for.
Oh yeah.
Kind of the villain or the antagonist of the episode. So I'm sure he was willing to let it go and just take anybody he could get at that point.
And I really like too that he didn't just thought it was funny. He thought the whole thing was funny, changing these
right, yeah,
students into these crazy Cro-Magnon. He thought the whole thing was funny. So
yeah, it'll wear off. Well, yeah, sure, but yeah. Okay, Carol, how about you?
Well, I have to jump on the bandwagon with, of course, Hush and Something Blue. They're lovely, and I really enjoy Pangs. I mean, the whole. Yeah. And all through it, Buffy is trying so hard to cook this perfect, not the frozen peas, they'll be mushy,
Yeah, right.
Trying to give them this, idyllic Thanksgiving dinner. I also really enjoy Fear itself. I love the whole haunted house that they have to get through. and how it comes true, and they're all dealing with their really individual fears that they're grappling with. This is still very early in the college year, so a lot of them are going through all of these changes and, dealing with these things. But you have all this great spooky stuff going on. Things are manifesting as real. The guy whose head on his plate is real. and
Right.
and then you get to the end, and they're like, "Oh no, we don't want to fight Gackner. He's horrible." And then it turns out, big demon, big fear, tiny little demon.
Yeah.
And then Giles is like, "Oh, I didn't read what was under the picture." And they're like,
Yeah.
"What?" Actual size.
Yeah.
So that to me really encompasses how Buffy so skillfully has horror and character exploration and humor in one really delicious little package.
Well, and Anya's costume too.
Oh, yes, we get this big insight into Anya. It's
most
just
horrible things you can think of. Yeah.
And I'd say the one that
reminds me.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you have that one, don't you? That's really funny.
I should have gotten it out. I got Oz out last
Ani
night.
and the bunny costume. That is just great.
Well done.
Yes.
And I'd say the one that I could live without would be Where the Wild Things Are, where we have an episode with Riley and Buffy boinking all through the episode. Minor prop maybe to the whole backstory to the frat house and the woman who ostensibly was doing good, but it really was not being good. But it was unnecessary. We got no character depth here. We got no story arc progression. Poor Riley and Buffy, the actors had to just grapple in these wrinkled sheets for an episode. I mean, it was just, the only redeeming factor I liked was Xander and Anya battling their way, through the vines up to
with the machetes.
It just was like, ugh, compared to the rest of the season for me. So we could do without that one.
Okay. Xavier.
Yeah, this season is kind of a roller coaster in a lot of ways. I will say for season 4, I have a Buffy top 20 list. There are 4 top 20 episodes from season 4, which is Hush, of course, Superstar, Who Are You, and what is my last one? Something Blue, of course. So yeah, it's got 4 top 20 episodes for me. And just some of the highlights of this season is going to be Oz's hair. Oz's hair was on point in season 4. It was crazy cool. It was the coolest it's ever been. So Oz's hair was on point. The Xander Harmony fight in the initial episode,
that was great.
Hair pull was fantastic. And whoever came up with that idea is a genius. And the highlights of the season, I would say, is going to be any scene between Willow and Oz, because in New Moon Rising and Wild at Heart, their breakup scenes or their like intimate scenes are absolutely killer. It's some of the best work I think that Allison Hannigan did throughout any of the seasons of any of the show. I mean, and that's saying a lot. But those scenes were really killer. And shout out to Seth Green as well, because I just thought, he held his own in those scenes just as well. So I love those scenes between them, to the point where it's really heartbreaking when he drives away both times. So that's what I'll say in my highlights. Lowlights, I got to agree with 2 of my friends here who have said 2 of my lowest shows are going to be Beer Bad and Where the Wild Things Are. I'm with you, Carol. Like, Where the Wild Things Are is like, makes me uncomfortable. I'm like, what am I watching? I mean, I just really didn't get it. And Beer Bad, it's got a wink and a nod. I get it, but it's just really dumb. And for me. And so that's what I would say are the 2 low lights. So, but yeah, really looking forward to getting into like this season and all the things about it. So.
Okay. All right, Marks, what you got for us?
Oh, everybody took everything. No. Let me just think here for a second. So yeah, of course, Hush. It's gonna have to be pretty much. But Hush is one of my favorites of all time of Buffy. Just a great episode, having so much of it silent, and such a challenge for filmmaking. Also, Fear itself, a lot of the same reasons I already said. That if you didn't like the episode for some reason, just that ending, actual size, sewed it right there. I love how Beer Bad. I love seeing some of these guest stars who weren't really big yet. Like in Beer Bad, Cal Penn plays one of those guys.
That's right. Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, he's in there, and then like the actor who played Chuck later on in Supernaturals, just this kind of minor vampire character later on. But some other episodes, I love Pains every Thanksgiving time. I like to watch Pains. I think Spike is hilarious. It's an interesting episode. It's also one of the only episodes where they're trying not to kill the big bad. They're trying to find a different way of solving the situation. Something Blue. A lot of you've said that already, but my favorite line from that is where Spike is in the bathtub and he's like wants to turn on the telly because Passions is on and Timmy fell down the well. Hilarious.
Yeah.
I've seen enough Passions. I got that reference.
Timmy's in the well.
Yeah, poor Timmy. And I don't know if anybody said A New Man. I liked that one. That was an interesting.
Oh yeah, the one with Giles.
Yeah, that was a different take.
Myself.
That was a lot of fun, and another Ethan Rain causing chaos episode.
Yeah.
He was a great character to just pop in and stir things up.
He was. I can't remember if he ever pops up again after this.
No, that's it. That's the last we see of Ethan.
Yeah, when Initiative gets you, don't come back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, and it cracks me up that that line of his after he gets caught. He says, "Well, he said I should just do these things and then leave town, but it's the sticking around to gloat that gets me every time."
Yeah.
But the beauty is that is so Ethan Rain. He would stay around just to gloat. That fits the character.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I notice anybody monologues, something bad's gonna happen. I was throwing one more. Superstar. Superstar is great. I just love the Jonathan character because he's someone who just kind of organically grew in the Buffy world, where he's just this really minor throwaway background character, and then we got that bigger episode with him of the last season, right, with the tower, and then this whole episode more centered around him, and then eventually we get more of him later. So I thought that's one of the things I love about Buffy is it feels really like a real world where people come in and out and grow and change. Like Percy appeared in one episode, they didn't have to do that, but just keeping that continuity up is really great, I think, and something special that Buffy does. And it was a hilarious episode.
And Danny Strong plays the hell out of that character.
Oh, he does.
I mean, he is in it to win it. I mean, he just really, I literally watched that right before this panel.
Yeah.
And he holds himself like whenever he was Superstar Jonathan versus at the very end when he's normal Jonathan. I mean, his hair, his mannerism, everything's so drastically different.
It was a fantastic performance. Yeah. Really.
Yeah. Agreed. And one of my favorite scenes from the season actually comes from that episode when once they've figured out that there's something weird going on with Jonathan and they're all sitting around at Giles' house and Xander is holding one of the books open and he says something, well, just if magic were that easy, we could just say something. I forget what it is he says. He sets the book on fire.
Yeah.
And the book catches fire and he thinks Giles doesn't notice, but Giles saw it and he says, Xander, don't speak Latin in front of the books.
Yeah.
To me, it's so Giles and yet, and so Xander at the same time, both of those things. But I really enjoyed that. Now, this season, we did have some new regulars, which I'll add. Anya was not technical, or Emma Caulfield was not added in the credits as a season regular, but she was in most every episode, I think. So, but between Riley, Anya, and Spike, we now have a bunch of, people that we're seeing more often than just sporadically. And then we lost one. We lost Oz. And so I'm curious about what are your feelings and reactions on these characters, the ones that we've, the newer ones who've become more regular at this point in the series anyway. Without taking into account what happens down the road, but as things stand right now. And how do you feel about Oz's departure? Do you feel as though that was handled well, aside from making us cry? Do you think it was, did you like how it all transpired? Jean, we'll start with you.
Okay, I didn't quite catch the last part of it about
Oz. My question is, what did you think about his departure? Did you feel as though it was handled well? Did you aside from being really heart-wrenching, did you like the way it was done?
Yeah, I did, because I think it just shows Oz's character. I think he's such a good guy at heart, and the fact that he realized he had to leave. He thought all this time that he had centered himself and he was, over the werewolf thing. He could control it now, but all it took was jealousy. All it took was for him to smell Willow on Tara, and it triggered the werewolf thing again. But I love the last line of that, because I wrote that down. He said, when Willow and he are talking in the truck before it leaves again, and he says, "My whole life I've never loved anything else," and that just really touched me. But again, I did like the way it was handled. I like the way Oz is such a good character and has such a moral compass, that he's so strong within himself, that I really like the way that was handled. I thought it was handled perfectly. I like Anya. I like Anya coming in now at this point. I love the way she introduced herself to Xander by coming into his basement and dropping her dress, and he's got that juice box.
Right. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah,
I really like that. And when she says that in Hush, that she and Xander are orgasm friends, and I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
So I like her. Yeah. I like Tara. I'm glad that Tara was introduced and became a really important character here. And I like the way Tara and Willow met at that. And I forgot how Tara put it. It was something about the witches were blessed be wannabes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, wannabe, blessed be. Yeah.
Anybody who's got a spice rack.
Yeah. She recognized a kindred spirit in Willow. She recognized that Willow had something special too, that she was really a strong witch. So so Anya and Tara, I'm glad they're here. I like the way they handled Oz's departure. So I think that answers the questions.
Okay. Carol.
Spike is a gift.
Yeah,
Spike keeps on giving. Yeah, okay.
He just brings so much. He brings angst. He brings humor. He brings conflict. He brings humor.
Yeah.
There's just, there's not a scene with Spike in it that isn't crackling with energy and and stuff going on. That he's a delight to watch in all of his interactions. It doesn't matter who he's with. He can be talking to Willow. He can be talking to Xander. He can be talking to anybody. He's on point, and he brings everybody into that game with him. So he is 100% delightful in every way. So that was fantastic to add him in. I enjoy Anya's entry into humans and their relationships.
Yeah.
We're trying to suss out what is a relationship, and how does it work, and what do these things mean, and what are the steps, and in Superstar, and when Buffy comes over to look at Xander's things, and she's like, "Oh, please come in." I mean, she's clearly working off these scripts of behavior.
Oh, you're still here. Yeah.
And so she's terrific with all of that, but clearly affection towards Xander. You know, she's not just doing it to mock or anything. She has feelings for Xander, and this is what she's trying to do to, you know, get into his world. So that's really, really nice. Oz leaving both times breaks my heart. I hate Veruca with the passion of 1,000 suns. Like, I just, you know, and it wasn't even like an actual infidelity issue where he was unfaithful to Willow. He was a werewolf, you know, and he was not himself and everything. And as soon as he was himself, he wanted to like eviscerate himself because of what was happening. So that was heartbreaking. And then to have him come back and have to leave again was even more heartbreaking. And I know they did it, excuse me, because Seth Green wanted to leave the show at that point. He wanted to go on and do other things. And it was all our loss because he was a delightful character. They had integrated him so well, partly because he's a werewolf, but even if he hadn't been, he had integrated so well with everybody and established relationships with Xander as the other, you know, the poor guys in the midst of, you know, girl power, and, you know, with Buffy and all of this stuff. He had so much to offer himself. And so to lose him was really, really sad, both in the story and, you know, for us watching the show. Um, uh, but then we get Tara, and, you know, there's a whole nother aspect where, you know, we have Willow exploring this new facet of her, you know, discovering things about herself. And Tara has this whole different kind of energy than Oz does, but yet she brings a lot to the table herself with the magic. She's the one who figures out that Faith and Buffy are in the wrong bodies.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one who detects the energy is off here, and that's what happened. So, you know, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. We lose a character, but we gain a character. So, you know, I can't even say that it's a trade-off, but they both had their aspects. And, you know, we just have to go on with the new paradigm. And, you know, it adds this whole new dimension, you know, intensifying Willow's journey and her magical, you know, growth and everything. And nobody's really in a, so I know Riley is a real, there are a lot of people, I think, who didn't care for Riley. I liked Riley. I think that Riley provided something that Buffy had not had, which was stability, reliability. He was a solid person. Even when she found out that he had a secret life, even that was, it was more above board than him being a vampire. You know.
Yeah, well, the first thing that came to mind when you said his name was him in Restless with the cowboy pants. That was so funny.
Oh, that was hilarious. So, and I think they kind of didn't give him a lot to do, but I think with what he had, he did the most he could. You know, they could have maybe given him a little wider range in writing for him. But I certainly did not dislike him. And I think there were points where he really stepped up and showed Buffy something that she really needed in her life, besides just Giles being her stability, you know. And you know, so I appreciated his addition into the gang, even if I didn't need to see him in the sheets with Buffy for the whole entire episode.
All right, Davior, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So with Anya, I like the way they kind of found a way to bring Cordelia back to the show without bringing Cordelia back to the show, because there's so many Cordelia characteristics to Anya, the bluntness, the kind of flightiness about her, and also carrying on the relationship with Xander. But it's smart how they find a way to make her still her own thing, but with those Cordelia elements. So, and the thing that I like about Anya and Xander the most is that, particularly when their relationship is foraging through this season, I think is so pure and has an innocence to it that I like, because Anya is just so genuine and honest because she doesn't know the rules of how to be a person. So the way she confesses how she feels about him, and Xander having the experiences he's had, and still being relatively new to relationships in a lot of ways. There's just a purity to their relationship that really kind of hooks you in and root for them that I really like. So I think Anya is a welcome addition to carry on the hole that Cordelia left, but also to be something genuine in her own right. Yeah, Spike. Look, I mean, there's not a Buffy fan, I don't think, that doesn't love James Marsters. I mean, he's fantastic, and I think they write for him so well, and he has so many things to do in this season. It always sticks in the back of my head, though, of why in the heck are they leaving him alive? I mean, it's like, because the way we even find out that he has a chip is he's about to kill Willow. That's how we find out he's got a chip. And everyone knows, they even say it, that if that chip ever malfunctions, they're all dead. He would not hesitate to kill them. So it feels so strained that they would put him in the situations that they do, knowing what this vampire is capable of. So I get it, and there's this conflict between us, the fans, and wanting to see more Spike, but within the context of the show, and it not really making sense for him to stay alive. Because if this was Drusilla, they would have killed her a long time ago. So it's kind of like, I wrestle with that, even though he's awesome in the season. And then Oz, yeah, I mean, Carol pointed out, Seth wanted to leave, but I like the way that they center it around the dark side of him being the wolf. And I'll combat Carol a little bit in that I do think he was a willing participant in the cheating with Faruka, because it appealed to him in a way. It connected to him in a way that Willow never could, which is on that level of him being this beast. And as much as the purity of he and Willow's love, Willow could never connect to that part of him. That was something that was unique to him and Faruka, both being werewolves. So it was something that he wanted equally. And I like that is the motivation for him to leave, to have to go fix this within him. So I'm glad that if he has to leave the show, it wasn't some BS reason for it, that they gave it a real motivation of why he has to go away. And then, I totally think Riley gets a bad rap. I think in the context of this show and in the world of Sunnydale and the Hellmouth, I think this kind of Captain America style guy who's just very genuine and just cares about doing the right thing kind of brings a whole different energy that I think is a good energy for that group. And I think, they don't give him a lot to do, but there's an earnestness that Mark Blucas plays the character with that I really appreciate within the context of this gang. So that's a great question, Carol, and those are my thoughts on it.
Okay. And Mark's.
Yeah, so the Oz breakup was rough, but well done. And I think it's hard to break up characters and not make somebody the bad guy, or at least towards the fans think of as a bad guy. So they did a good job making it to where it wasn't really anybody's fault per se, and or at least you could see why it happened on both sides.
It made sense, even though it was breaking our hearts. It
made sense, and then if Tara wasn't so cool, it might have been harder to accept Tara, but she ended up being so cool and so different from Oz. And added a different dynamic to the team that I was okay with it overall. I mean, I still wish we could have got some more Oz, of course, but it worked out pretty well. It's really, really hard. Besides just breaking up two characters, but then like you're really replacing characters, and it's real easy for fans to go, I hate this new character because you just replaced my other character with this character, and I don't feel like many, if any, Buffy fans felt that way, and that's a real accomplishment to pull that off. And then Spike, I love Spike, my favorite character, both Buffy and Angel. I just think even though there's missteps here and there, his whole arc as a character through both shows, I think is really great. He could have been very easily a throwaway character, but he just he grew into a fan favorite. And in every scene, like many of you said, I think he does a great job. He does a great job. He doesn't steal the scene, but he like enhances every scene with all the characters. Right. And so he works so well with everybody. And it is kind of hard to believe they wouldn't just stake him, but they're being nicer to demons. Not all demons are evil this season.
Right.
That was one drawback of Riley's personality, right? Is Riley was a little demon bigoted or whatever whatever the term would be.
Right.
So I like that they did have a Spike. It helps. It's like behavior modification with the fans too, for everybody, and then of course in future seasons we see how that evolves. And then like with Riley, I liked that she got kind of two regular boyfriend things. She got like a bad boyfriend that was a terrible relationship, like got a one night stand, got used, and then she got a good boyfriend, human boyfriend, who showed her a more stable relationship. So she got some experience in relationships besides, a depressing vampire. So it's so it was good for Buffy's, development and growth and relationships and stuff. And then and I don't dislike Riley. I don't know if he would fit very well long term in that show, but would have fit very well long term in that show. But I liked his different dynamic, the additive team, and I like that, like you said, Captain America type flavor he had to it. Love the cowboy, the death of the salesman.
He was so excited about those pants. That was just like, oh my god.
And then Anya, like it was said earlier, great Cordelia replacement, but not just a replacement. She's got that no filter like Cordelia, but she also has the fish out of water aspect of being human again, but not knowing exactly what that means and trying to get used to, talking to people. And I think she made Xander better, really, because even though I like Xander and stuff, he would in certain episodes annoy the crap out of me in certain episodes because of his jealousy thing he has, like with like every girl that he's friends with, if they got a guy, he gets jealous about it even if they're not involved, right? And it got real old real fast, and he'd do little jabs and stuff. But this is the first season where he didn't do that. This is his first season where he was just like the heart of the group, and he was like trying to give advice to people and help them out. He wasn't like worrying about, who was sleeping with who or anything. He was just trying to be a good friend and stuff. And I think that made Xander actually a better character.
Yeah, he was. When you say that about this was the first season that he didn't show that other side, or that's going to play into what my next question is. But first, we have to hear Anna's thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm surprised that no one mentioned Harmony. I mean, she's not new, but vampire Harmony is new. And I really enjoyed Vampire Harmony and her unicorn collection. She was so fun, and I thought the way that she and Spike played off of each other were just the really, really fun scenes. Oz leaving, I'm gonna disagree with it. I think everybody, but it's not that I didn't want him to leave. I didn't like that final episode with him very much because I didn't like, he was always such an even guy and he was not the jealous type. And I understand what they did with it. That after this sort of recalibration, that the wolf side of him was different and came out in a different way. But I didn't really like the that like intense jealousy from him because it just didn't feel like Oz to me.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It wasn't really in his character before then to be a jealous guy. If it was Xander, on the other hand, I think we would all have expected that kind of reaction. But I didn't like that. I mean, the final like little chat in the van and all that stuff was nice, but that jealousy I didn't like. I didn't think it was a good send-off, at least. Tara's one of my favorite characters of the whole series, so I'm so glad to have her there. And Anya's also really fun. I think everybody kind of already said all of the things that you need to say about them. But I did want to throw in a shout out for Harmony.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, Harmony, I mean, she was so annoying when she was a human, but as a vampire, she's hysterical.
Hilarious.
How many? I know at least a few of you, or I think probably almost everybody here watched Vampire Diaries, and Caroline was similar in that when she was a human being, it was like, oh yeah, I don't care if I ever see her again. But as a vampire, she was great. So it is kind of an interesting thing, and I want to go back to something that Davior said, because I was wondering the same thing about why do they, the fact that they just don't ever get rid of Spike, that they have the opportunity and they don't actually kill him. But it works the other way around too. There are times when he could actually have killed some of them, but he doesn't do it. And so it's just kind of an interesting conundrum from both angles, I think. And I'm not sure why, but well, because they have to have the character stick around is the main reason. But I'm just saying but I think it would be, for me, it would be a bit harder to swallow if it didn't come from both sides, if that makes sense. If it, if it didn't seem to be that, it's not as though they've decided, oh, this is our agreement, we're not going to kill you and you're not going to kill us, but that's the way it works out. And so since that seems to be that there's a balance there somehow. And it reminds me a lot, I had the same kind of questions and on Supernatural with Crowley and the brothers. It's like, it was the same kind of situation. So there's an animosity, but there's also a respect kind of thing, I guess. At least that's my take on it. So
yeah.
Now my next question is about Faith. And now we don't see Faith again on Buffy until season 7. Because this part of her arc gets finished out on Angel rather than on Buffy, which made me think to myself, why didn't you watch them one after the other? Because I had done that in the past, where I watched a Buffy season 4 episode and then an Angel, because for the first couple seasons of Angel, they were more connected than they were later on. So even though people still showed up or whatever. But my observation, I guess, about Faith in these 2 episodes, especially in Who Are You, which, I mean, what kind of props can we give to both of those women for playing the other person in there? That was just crazy. I don't know how they pulled that off. But, when the difference was, I think, is that in trying to be Buffy, Faith actually ended up taking on some of Buffy's personality characteristics and some of, the fact that she had to jump in and save people. Well, I have to do it. I'm Buffy, that kind of thing. And so what my questions is just, tell me, how did you feel about Faith and in her story and in what we saw from this season, those couple of episodes that dealt with her, and even though we don't see her again for a while, how did those couple of episodes leave you feeling about the character? And Carol, I think it's your turn to go first.
Well, I love those 2 episodes. The first one, when Faith is simply back and having to reintegrate herself into a world that doesn't know her and isn't going to do anything for her, as the mayor tells her via his videotape, from the beyond.
Right. Yeah.
And then the second episode, when they actually have the swap, there are a lot of funny aspects, of course, when they swap, and like Buffy, like looking at herself in the mirror and making faces and stuff. And then you've got poor Buffy here she is, locked in the van with the Watcher guys, and having to break out and all of this kind of thing. And I don't think there's as much for Buffy to learn from Faith's life as there is from Faith learning about Buffy's life. I think the what happens for Faith is she has her first real taste of, she spent so much time thinking of Buffy as the goody-goody. Buffy does what's supposed to happen. Buffy is, the princess and everything. But then as she's actually in Buffy's shoes, literally,
Right.
she experiences, family life and the love of a mother's love from Joyce, and her friends actually listening and speaking with respect to her, as Willow and Xander and Giles and Riley all do. They all listen to her and they all value her input. And this is a whole new experience for her. Faith has always been on the outside. Faith has always been, the rough one. And bit by bit, I think what we see is this is chips away at her, enormous concrete walls that she's erected around herself her whole life in order to protect herself. And we see these little chips happening with each encounter. And when she sleeps with Riley, she is completely thrown. Yeah, she's a woman who's had a lot of sex, but she's never made love with anybody. And that is for her. She does not know how to deal with it, does not know how to handle it. And I think that, no pun intended, just pierces her in a whole new way with the emotional impact of and intimacy of what sex really is, rather than fun friction, after a hunt. And the final straw is when she abandons her escape. She's at the airplane counter, but she abandons her escape to go to the church to save the people and I don't think this is just because that's what Buffy would do. It's because she's a slayer and she knows it, that down underneath it all, she's a slayer and this is her job. This is what slayers do. They protect people from vampires, and she goes to do it. And again, is completely thrown with the gratitude of the people and everyone welcoming her as a hero and all of that. And when she finally leaves, I think she is seriously discombobulated. Her whole worldview, from when she woke up from the coma with the mayor always spoiling her and petting her as his little pet assassin. And all of a sudden, she has now spent some time really experiencing life in a whole different way. And she just doesn't know how to even deal with it yet. The processing of it is beyond her even at this point, because she's still experiencing it. And when she goes, I think that's part of why she's fleeing, is she has to figure out what all this means and how is this affecting her, and is in fact everything she's ever known wrong.
Yeah, the look on her face when she's there. Yeah, she's processing a number of things. Dev, you were anxious to talk about Faith, so.
Well, I've always loved that character because of I don't think she doesn't walk the dark side. I think she walks the dark side, but I think that's because she thinks that's the only side that she's able to walk on. And I think, much to what Carol was saying, I think there is so much, because there's that thing of you become the embodiment of how people perceive you. And when she is able to be in Buffy's body and people start treating her as Buffy, as the hero, she starts to embody that. Because the only reason she's been Faith the whole time is because that's the only way she's ever been treated, as this person who is this outcast, who is this terrible person. And she's played into that, because what choice does she have? But now now living in Buffy, she finally gets to live the life maybe that she's always wanted or never knew she could live, which is, I get to be the hero. I get to be the one who people come to and to lead. And we actually will see that repeated again later on in season 7, But it's like, but that's a constant thing with Faith, and it's directly related to what her relationship with the mayor was, which is somebody that is going to treat her as a human being, that is going to give her a sense of belonging. So it is, what I like about the writing is that it's a perfect through line for that character. And it makes a lot of sense that once she embodies this and starts reacting to the world, or having people in the world react to her as Buffy, she takes that on, because it's like, yes, of course she would. So and when Buffy confronts her in the church as Faith, and just the reaction she has to wanting to destroy her own self, that is so powerful. And that when when the show ends and she's just on the train going to wherever she's going, it is so devastating, because for a minute she got to feel like what it was to not be the bad guy, and to be the hero. And I think actually that episode is really what puts Faith on the road to eventual salvation. But I just think it's fantastic writing, and it just stays consistent with who that character is. So yeah, and it's unfortunate that spoiler alert, we don't get to see Faith for another 2 seasons after that.
Yeah. Okay, Marks.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sarah Michelle Gellar did a fantastic job embodying Faith in her character. I mean, Liza Dushku did a good job too, but she didn't have as much screen time.
Right.
She's mostly just chained up trying to get out. So I think she did a great job. I think this was, in some ways, so it's really tough. Like with the Riley, it's like, in some ways it's her most evil act that she ever committed, because she made Riley have sex she didn't know she was having sex with, and did that as revenge against Buffy. But then that evil act, though, leads to the beginning of her redemption, right? Because she sees that really nails it in the coffin, nails it in that she, that what love, or with somebody who loves you could be like to you, or whatever. What I'm trying to say, what love could be, right? Not weird, twisted, fatherly love from the mayor or something, but like someone who really isn't expecting anything from
romantic love. Yeah.
A romantic love. Yeah. And that begins her ability to kind of go to redemption. That, leads her to eventually change her mind to go to church, and which happens to be Riley's church, and fight.
Yeah, that was funny.
Yeah.
I had forgotten that until.
It's like, how'd you get here so fast? Oh, I was late to getting service.
Yeah.
And leads her down, and we know, I don't know how much Buffy. I didn't watch Angel's episode, recently. I watched originally when it aired, so I can't remember exactly what the conversations were like. So I don't know how much Buffy registered at that moment, how much what Faith was like when she was punching herself, that she really was hating herself. But we know as an audience, and we know that she really has made a turning point of where she's realizing that she needs to change and go a different direction. And I guess Angel helps give her that option too, right? So, but yeah, it was the kind of episode. It was a great showdown between two bad guys and her arch nemesis, but also led to a good redemption, beginning of a redemption for the character to become an anti-hero.
Okay. Anna, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think with everyone, I think it was a really great arc, and I really enjoyed getting to see those smaller moments with Faith. I do think that Buffy did get also, I know Carol said, I think that you didn't think that she really got to experience what it's like to be Faith, but I do think she did in a way, because I think she was treated like a criminal.
She got spit on.
And, and when she's first, going to Giles and everybody, like, she has to convince them, like, pretty, like, no, and she really was, I think she felt that. I think she felt that, but also, I mean, from her perspective, I'm sure that she also thought that Faith deserved to be treated like a criminal in some ways. But I don't know. It was a very good juxtaposition, and for both of them to experience what it was like to be the other. So
Okay. Jean.
Yeah, I thought these were two really interesting segments because, well, first of all, Faith Buffy, when she's first with Giles and the group, she's really kind of cruel to them because she, kind of taunts Willow about Tara, and which is when Tara realizes that she doesn't think that's really Buffy, because everything that Willow has told her about Buffy, this person that is kind of taunting her at the bronze isn't the person that Willow described. And when pardon me?
I said I hated that. It just like made my skin crawl when she was mean to Tara. Oh,
I know.
But then she does the thing with Spike. That kind of made up.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pop you like a grape. Yeah.
I'm gonna squeeze you and you pop like warm champagne. I like that one.
Yeah.
And Spike's expression too. That's priceless. One thing that I thought was really interesting too about this year's girl is that before Faith wakes up and she's dreaming and she's having this conversation with Buffy in the dream, and she says something, and I wrote this down because it just stood out to me. Little sis is coming.
Yeah.
And it's like a foreshadowing. That's the first time that idea. And of course, the first time I saw this, it didn't mean anything to me. But seeing it again, then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, this is foreshadowing of what's going to happen. So yeah, I think that there were two really interesting episodes here, and I love Faith practicing to be Buffy when she says, "You can't do that; it's wrong."
Yeah, yeah. When she's practicing in the mirror,
yeah, when she's practicing in the mirror, I thought that was really good. So I enjoyed these two episodes too, and I thought that I don't know that I thought Faith was so much redeemed toward the end of this as that she just all of a sudden had a different way of looking at who Buffy was and who she is. So I'm looking forward to seeing Faith again because I know that when she comes back. But this is something I was going to ask you, Carol, too. Are we going to do Angel after this?
Well, I haven't really decided that yet, so I'll have to consult with a few people on that. It's I did consider that, so anybody who may be interested in that needs to let me know. So.
Because I used to do, I did what you did. I would watch a Buffy episode, and then I would watch the Angel episode, and the Buffy and Angel, and the continuity was perfect. Because
that's really only true for the first couple seasons of Angel, and then after that, it doesn't.
But it was nice because in this one, when she comes back from LA, you really don't know what went on, because they didn't really go into it very much about. Until Angel comes back later and apologizes to her, but you really don't know. But anyway, that's off the subject. I know. I miss Angel so much because I really like Angel, and I like Angel coming back in this. Well, in the Thanksgiving episode when he's there, but she doesn't know it until the end. Somebody says, "Oh, especially with Angel." Whoops.
Yeah. Should have kept my mouth shut there. Yeah.
Of course, it was Xander.
Of course, it was Xander. Yes.
Yeah, of course it was Xander.
That little sis. I know that too. Did you notice that in the last episode they said "be back before dawn"? So I was like, oh, there's a bunch of hints.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Make sure you're back before dawn. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. It's very, very good.
And. Yeah, that one I didn't actually catch. So good call there. I mean, I heard the but I thought that they meant like literal dawn. So that's a good one too. Now, one of the things that I saw within this season was kind of the transitions that so many of the main characters are going through. or people who've been around for a while anyway. I mean, for our trio, the original three Scoobies, it's a kind of a transition into adulthood beginning for each of them. And, even in Giles' case, he's having to get used to a different stage of his life, considering that the library the whole school was incinerated. And, so he's having to find other things that, to do with his time. And even Spike has to get used to a whole new way of life because of the fact that he can't be what he was. So what my question is for you, how do you see these adjustments? You can pick just one character, and how do you think that one of these adjustments has affected, or how does it affect the season and kind of the story, the narrative of the show, and as it goes along? And Devior, we'll start with you first.
Oh, that's a damn good question. Because I think that is one of the best things about season 4 is how it so perfectly ties into that first year of college being such a year of transition for you, and being the senior in high school and now being in a place where you don't know the rules and you've got to reestablish yourself from the beginning. So I think that is the thing that I connected to the most, and the whole season has that through line. So if there's one character I would focus on, I would say it's got to be Willow. I would say Willow's growth, because she loses Oz, and Oz has kind of been a defining aspect of her for like the previous two years now.
Right.
And so she goes to this point where she doesn't have Oz, and then she finds Tara, and now she's in a new relationship that's got a whole new component to it. And also now she's discovering and performing magic on a whole new level, because now she has this person in Tara who is not only this new love, but a new gateway into this next level of magic for her. So it's interesting that, there's this interesting context that Tara brings, because we love Tara, and this relationship is really beautiful how it forms over time, but Tara eventually leads Willow to where Willow will eventually go, where we know she will. So I would say where this starts to take Willow, and we'll see this further develop in season 5, and then of course culminate in those last 2 seasons. But I would say her transition particularly as we've been doing this retrospective, from where she was in season 1, looking at her particularly in season 4, and it starts off from like the first episode with just like her presentation, like the hair is different. She feels more just in control of herself, like in that opening season, and she literally starts, or in the opening episodes, and she literally starts up there and has to take this massive dive from when her and Oz's relationship falls apart, and then where she kind of resurrects when she now finds Tara. So I would say she takes this massive roller coaster, and particularly is on this brand new trajectory with magic and where her and Tara are going into season 5. So I would say Willow.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a good point to talk about. When you think about how excited she was, in that first episode back when she and Buffy had first started at UC Sunnydale, and she's all excited about academia, and it's a cool thing to see, and it's for people who may have been maybe a few years younger than what the characters were supposed to be. Seeing that was kind of a cool, a cool thing for someone to be so excited about that kind of a life. And
she was finally in her element. Like she was in a place where she didn't have to be the nerd anymore. There were other smart kids. And because she was with Oz, and Oz knew everybody, like she already kind of had an end to the college scene. So it was like a complete reversal from her high school persona. Like she like had this position of power. So it was really interesting. Yeah. Great point of that, of how she starts out. Mm-hmm.
Marks.
So I was gonna say Willow.
Sorry, Mark.
No, you can still say Willow. That's fine.
But just to add one thing to that was I think they kind of hammer that home in Restless whenever she had that nightmare being in front of class, and you see kind of old Willow, high school Willow again.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that Tara's almost more shy and stuff than she was whenever we first met Willow. So it's interesting how that relationship dynamic's different. So I'll pick a different character. I'll go with Giles, just because they didn't have to do anything with him if they didn't want to, but they did stick with theme and have him transition too. Because I think if Giles had become the college librarian and was a pseudo watcher, we would have been, okay, that's cool. I'll go with that. It's a cool dynamic. But instead, they had Giles kind of, going back and forth what he wanted to do with his life and how much he should help Buffy still. And we met a love interest of his, and that didn't end up working out because she couldn't handle, the truth of the things he deals with. And we got to see the actor sing and got a little warm-up preview to the musical eventually, right?
Yeah. And he gets to sing twice in this season.
Yeah, he sings twice. Yeah. And I mean, one of those songs could be straight out of the musical almost. So so they got to show a few more layers, I guess, to Giles that helped develop his character some more. Where they didn't have to do it. If they didn't do it, I don't think anybody would have said anything this season. But they did it and added some more depth to Giles. So
okay, Anna.
Okay, can you repeat the question?
Well, it's just the fact that I saw this season, and I think that's one reason why it sometimes feels not necessarily disconnected, but how it sometimes feels as though it's kind of all over the place in some ways. That it's because they're working through the main three, the trio of Xander, Willow, and Buffy, are working through moving into adulthood. And it means something different for each of them. Giles is he's having to transition into a different area of his life, and Spike is having to learn how to make his life different and somehow still survive. And so what my question is if you focus on one of those, how do you see that as how do you see their journey throughout the season as kind of affecting the show, the story as a whole?
That's a good question. As Javier said, but I was like, oh, I totally missed half of that. So
maybe they don't need to not be so long. I don't know. I sit there.
No, it's good though. Yeah, it's almost like how we've barely talked about the initiative in this panel. Like, I think it's not a weaker like big bad. It's just a corporate big bad. And so it doesn't pull the focus as much, I think, as some of the other seasons where it's like the mayor, Spike and Drusilla. And so I think there's this disjointedness that is in the season because of that. But for each of the characters, they have that moment, when they all have their part to go up against Adam
right
at the end. And it's like each of them has gone through their journey this season separately to get to this place where they come back together and as a whole. And I think for Willow, like, she's discovering who she is, and she's scared to tell Buffy, that she's with Tara. And then Xander is kind of just always on the outskirts of the action, and he didn't really know what his place was. And so he's not really in the college group. Where is his place? What is he doing? And I think there's a lot of moments for him where he's trying to discover who he is, and like the construction, finding a job that he's good at. And we sort of see him build that confidence even more in season 5, which is kind of nice for him, because like Mark said, he becomes more likable in this season for me too, with the jealousy stuff kind of to the side.
Yeah, I think the past 3 panels we all talked about how we wanted to smack him fairly often.
Yes,
so, yeah,
fairly often. But he's got Anya, and he's sort of trying to figure out his place in the world, not just in the group. And if that place, those are still his friends, but like he's not in college with them, he's not doing this or that. How is he contributing to slaying? How is he, so I think, there's a lot of moments for Xander that I think are interesting, and I think him finding construction is sort of one of those moments for him, but then also recognizing that he's the heart of the group is a big moment. Right. So
okay, Jean.
Well, I guess the character that I enjoyed most in this was watching Spike go through what he went through. First of all, when he goes and tries, after he escaped from the initiative, and he goes to bite Willow and he can't do it, and he says, "This has never happened to me before."
Yeah, that whole conversation.
Yeah, that whole thing was so great. And then when they realize that he's been defanged, so to speak, they kind of take care of him, but he ends up living with Xander, and Spike in Xander's clothes was worth the whole season as far as
I have that actually.
Oh, you
I have a Spike figure, which I'll break out for next time, but yeah, I've got the shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That is so great. And when it gets so bad that he tries to dust himself, I think that's hilarious. I mean, there's so many scenes that he has, and the Thanksgiving scene when he ends up looking like a pincushion. He's tied to this chair and he's got like a dozen arrows, but luckily none of them went where it would have done the most damage. But then the funny thing is when he realizes that he can hurt demons.
Right.
Oh, it's like he was reborn again. And he gets his, he said, "Let's go kill something." He's ready to go fight with the Scoobies.
Save puppies.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, let's go
kill something now. Yeah.
So I really enjoyed Spike in this arc. And
I'm sorry, I was just saying his part is enjoyable because it's not.
Yes.
The others were very difficult, heart-wrenching, more human kinds of things to see. And whereas his having to get used to a whole new lifestyle was, better for everybody around him. and it may have been a little difficult on him, but they certainly had fun with it for sure.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun with it. And Spike in the bathtub being fed and saying, "Hey, it's time for my story."
You're out of Weetabix.
Yeah, I had to watch his story. So, yeah, I enjoyed Spike very much in this season.
Okay, all right, Carol, bring us home.
I really enjoyed Giles being at a loss for most of this season. He kind of starts off like, "Okay, yeah, I'm the watcher." And then he kind of realizes, Buffy doesn't really need a watcher. And I'm really not a watcher because they fired me. And I'm just kind of hanging out in my cool apartment. And, what the heck am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
The whole thing where that's where he goes and has the drinks with Ethan Rayne, because he's like, he didn't know Buffy had a boyfriend, much less that the boyfriend was one of the initiative.
Right.
Yeah. Like, what the heck? I'm out of the loop, and nobody talks to me anymore. And so he is that he's really floundering, and then he meets Professor Walsh, and all he hears about is Buffy saying, "Oh, Professor Walsh this, Professor Walsh that," and then he meets her and he's like, "Oh my God, she's like a fishwife." And and so he has that joyous moment when he's the Fjarl demon and he gets to chase her down.
That was so good.
So he's really at a loss. He's really floundering. And finally, by the end of the season, he's starting to find his feet under him again, to just be like, there are still things that have to be done, and I still have things to contribute, and they don't crystallize as much as they do until the beginning of the 5th season. But even here by the end, he's putting things together, and he's the one who then can craft the mechanism that they use to finally put Adam down and everything. So he realizes, I am still, contributing, and they all tell him, yes, we still need you. When he tells Willow that he's going to go back to England, she keeps doing all these things. Well, I wouldn't know anything if it weren't for Giles.
Yeah.
Play up his role and stuff. But even more than Giles is Buffy. Buffy starts the year completely out of her element. She knew everything in high school, knew what to do, how to do it, everything. And here she's like, what's going on? The whole thing with Parker just flays her self-esteem. She doesn't know, the teachers are nasty, and the campus is huge, and these nasty vampires almost beat the crap out of her until she finally comes back. So she spends the whole season, I think, growing into the fact that she realizes I'm not, she even says at the end, well, this is a lot like high school and I can handle that. But you know what? It isn't. And she realizes that, and she grows out of it. And I think even the whole process with the initiative, where she's like, wow, here's this whole bigger sphere. And she's with it. She wants to be a part of it and everything. And it goes south. But at every point, she gets stronger. At every point, she resumes more and more of her own confidence and her own power, so that by the end of it, even without doing the spell that lets them vanquish Adam, she is a far, far stronger person and slayer than she was at the beginning of the season. So, and it's not a back and forth thing. Like Willow has this back and forth thing, and Giles has this kind of I'm stuck in a loop thing. It's a slow progression for her. But when you look at it, she's like, she's completely turned around, I think, by the end of the year than she was at the beginning.
Steady climb.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, now we're going to talk about Hush. And to me, that episode, which occurs almost exactly halfway through the season, leads into what I consider to be one of the main themes of the season, is about communication, or the lack thereof. The breakdown of it. And, because we find out late, I mean, the characters are keeping secrets from one another. Or just, it is not even just secrets. It's just not letting each other know how they feel. And these things are leading to some serious problems, which come to a head in the Yoko factor. Now, granted, that was all pushed by Spike, but Buffy even points out, but I think things were already, kind of messed up before he came along. That's why it was so easy for him to be able to manipulate them. And, how do you feel that, that, well, the Hush episode is just great. And I think that as a lead in to this topic, it was perfect, because at the end you get Buffy and Riley sitting there looking at each other, and now they're both like, oh, now we have to talk. It's like now we can't hide it from each other anymore. And did you feel as though the whole problem, the issues that they were having with the communication with each other, did you feel as though they resolved them fairly well, at least for now, within the season? And just but then I also said we would talk about Hush, which we will, because I want to know what were some of your favorite aspects of that episode. Mark, you get to go first.
Okay, but Marks, you have to mime your whole entire answer.
Yeah.
Stay on
I was,
mute.
I was about to say,
okay.
I feel weird. I'm muting myself to answer this question. Yeah, I mean, Hush is great. One of the best episodes and a great experimental episode. Evil did recent season. They did a silent episode. So I feel like there's so much in Buffy that Buffy did first. The other shows, picked up on. But yeah, and another thing that makes it so great is it moves the story along with the characters, like you mentioned, Carol. It's moving along. Tara and Willow meet. I'm pretty sure they met one episode before then, just barely.
That was
So their friendship relationship really grows, in that episode. And of course, finally, Riley and Buffy's secret gets revealed and stuff, and they have to deal with the aftermath of that. So, I mean, you could be really tempted just to do a special episode. We're gonna do really silent. Nothing changes. We're just gonna have our characters run around and do whatever. But Buffy always takes it up the next level and adds some character growth in it. But I loved just the look of the gentlemen. I loved how they floated, how the actors, handled themselves with those giant smiles and their hands, their little henchmen. I love the fairy tale, angle to it with their little creepy rhyme poem thing by a little kid. I just loved that whole aspect of it. The music is great. It played really well with all the scenes before us. The humor was great. We had such great humor. Misunderstandings of hand signals.
Oh yeah, that whole instructional segment in the that's too funny.
Such great balance of humor and doing so much of the episode silent. That's a real challenge. It's a real acting challenge, directing challenge, everything. So, and they're great bad guys, and we never see the gentleman again. I mean, I don't know if there are other gentlemen out there in the world somewhere. Or those are all of them, but I wouldn't have hated a gentleman sequel, but that's okay. It makes it more special. But yeah, that's why. I think one of the things I always come back to with Buffy in my mind now, especially rewatching it now as I'm older, that I think they do so well, and we've talked about before, that other urban fantasy shows don't always do so well on episode to episode, throughout. Like they have episodes, but not throughout their seasons. Is I think Buffy just does a great job layering relatable themes with their story, and tying them in there where it's when you stop and think about, oh yeah, I see that, but it wasn't like obvious. It felt organic and natural. So this is one of those episodes.
Anna. You needed
yeah. No, but really, the miming is like my favorite thing, probably. But yeah, there's just so many good moments from it being silent. It really is. I mean, it deserved that Emmy that it got. It really did. It was just so excellent. Such great. Such great writing with no dialogue. But yeah, so I don't know what else to say. You guys are getting I'm getting to the tired point where I'm just like, yeah, this is fine.
Oh, okay. Jean.
Yeah, I thought I enjoyed it too. I guess I'm not as big a fan as this episode as everybody else seems to be. I thought it was excellent. It was creative. It was terrific. But there were some things, and I think Mark, you might have mentioned that there are themes that kind of resonate. Well, I remember one part where they were watching a news show, and they were talking about how in this Sunnydale this phenomenon is happening, and they were blaming the flu vaccinations.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that kind of that makes sense.
Some things never change. Yeah.
Some things never change. And another part of this one that I made a note of is that I think that was her first kiss with Riley. Buffy's first kiss with Riley was during this episode too, which I thought was pretty good. The gentlemen were really creepy, and I thought Tara Willa, of course, were wonderful. They moved that drip machine together to protect themselves. And I'm trying to remember, but I can't. Did they perform a spell? Is that why Buffy was able to scream? I can't remember why she was able to scream.
Riley broke the box.
Riley broke. That's right. When they were
on the second try.
Yeah, first it breaks like one of the jars or something.
Yeah,
And she's like,
in the bell tower. That's right. That's right. She was trying to mime to him what to do, and that's what I can't forget that. So yeah, that was it. There were a lot of good things about that, but I don't know. Everybody always mentions Hush as being just the seminal episode of Buffy, and I don't feel that way. I like the Once More with Feeling much more than I liked Hush. To me, that was the best episode of all.
Okay, Carol.
Done.
I adore Hush. I adore everything about it. Visually, it's stunning with the gentleman and the creepy gentleman's minions with the, oh my God, they freaked me out so bad. Like the first couple of times I watched it.
Yeah, the way they just
flapping their little straitjacket arms and stuff. Oh man, super creepy. And I loved the fact that speech was removed, and so everything else became so much more significant. And so hence we do have the funny moments with the stabbing, and then she's got to get the steak out so everyone gets Anya's sitting there eating her popcorn.
Yeah, that was hilarious too. Yeah.
So we have a lot of those. And Giles's little transparencies, and there's like all the blood and everything. We're like, oh jeez. So there was so much that was humorous, which we kind of needed because it was so scary and it was so dire. And I think they upped that humor to help counterbalance that. And it just made it, even more delicious. But yeah, everything became more significant. Every look, and you're like, oh, now they really can tell that they're trying to say this with their eyes or, and yes, Buffy and Riley have, after a couple of episodes where they keep almost kissing and they don't, and Forrest is even like, well, get with the kissing, and and it never happens, and then here they are, and there's no words to get in the way, and so what do? They grab each other and kiss because they need to communicate their feelings, and that's what they do, because now there's nothing in the way, but that moment needs to happen. As opposed to at the end, hey, words are back. They know they need to talk. And then they just stand there and sit there in silence for the last, 15 seconds of the episode because they don't even know what to say and no one wants to break the silence. And I think one of the things that makes it unique, this episode unique, is that even though they took that communication away, the way they progressed everybody's storyline and the actual arc is amazing, because we have that moment where Willow and Tara go from just being a little interested in each other to having this fight for their life moment. Tara sees Willow trying to move that soda machine, knows what's happening, grabs her hands, they interlock, and they both turn and look, and boom, because together they have that much power. And that just took their relationship from here to here, in 5 seconds. Anya has been like, where am I? How does Xander feel about me? Where is our relationship? Where are we going? And because he thinks Spike has bitten her, he's immediately furious, wants to kill him. He's jealous and okay, it was all a false alarm. But Anya is like, oh my God, he really loves me. He never had to say a word. Their relationship also just went, even though she cheapens it a little bit by saying, I won't perform her gesture here, but we can all imagine what it was. I mean, because it was pretty blatant.
We are a PG-13 family, so yeah. Well, Davier, what about you?
Yeah, I'll do it. That gesture was hilarious.
Thank you.
That gesture was the perfect button on that moment. And not only just the gesture that she had, but everyone's reaction to it, which was just like vomiting So yeah, that was fantastic. And I'll also give a shout out to when Giles, who's using the overhead projector, puts up Buffy's presentation, and Buffy's looks at herself and goes, in regards to her hips, in regards to
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like that, just like, but I mean, little things like that though, and just like the creativity of the episode are just second to none. And I think like that the gentlemen are truly probably the most horrific characters in all of Buffy. Like truly just like horrifying like designs and entities, not only in just how they look, but how they kill you. I mean, to take away your voice so that it doesn't matter how much you scream while these straight-jacketed henchmen hold you down and they cut out your heart. I mean, that is literally one of the most vicious and terrifying ways that someone can be, that a creature can get you. So so the whole thing in the presentation of the episode and just the characters, I just think is fantastic. So yeah. Like Gene said, it's not my favorite episode. That is coming up next season. But yeah, I think it's easily a top 5 for me. Easy.
Yeah, and I think when I talked about that it seemed to me as though that kind of was the gateway into the whole communication issues that they had throughout the rest of the season. It kind of, as we've been sitting here and listening to you guys talk about it, just the fact that in that episode they couldn't talk, and the episodes after that they didn't. They was their choice to not do it. And so I just thought that was kind of an interesting juxtaposition. And since we've been running so long, I'm going to make our next 2 questions, believe it or not, very brief, that I just want you to tell me, does anybody disagree that the big bad of this season was the initiative / basically the government, who wanted to take, that we find out in the next to the last episode that they were going to take the power of supernatural beings and, try to harness them for their own uses to use as a weapon. So does anybody disagree that they were the big bad? Okay, good. Then that was one question, was who was the big bad? Okay. We're all on the same page. And then the last thing, we usually talk about the finale last of all, but we've already said a fair amount about Restless. So, and since it is, we have been wearing you guys out for an hour and a half already, I would just like you to tell me briefly if you found Restless to be a satisfying finale, and how did you feel about the season overall? And we're back to Anna for first. Oh, but wait a minute. Before we do that, Renita says nope. Renita, nope to what? The initiative was not the bad guy?
No, does anyone disagree? And we all said, no, we don't disagree.
Oh, okay. And so she's agreeing. Okay.
She was agreeing with us.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. No explanation necessary. But Anna, okay. Restless.
Okay. So when I first saw it live, I think I was just confused by it.
Yeah, I think so. I think everybody was.
Yeah, but I was also pretty young when I first saw it, so it was confusing, especially for like a 12-year-old. But
they're like, "Mommy, what's that hand signal Anya made?"
Well, what's Buffy doing with her? Yeah, either way.
Oh, but yeah, I think now rewatching the show, I enjoy it a lot more. It's still just weird as hell.
It is, yeah.
And it's out of place, kind of. It's weird, but I enjoy it. Now I'm not just confused by it.
Right.
But yeah, it is. I think it's a weird choice for the finale specifically too, to end the season on it. But I don't know. I'm interested to hear what everybody else thinks.
Okay, Jane.
Well, I made a note on this episode, and I said it's a tone poem, but I don't I don't know. I had kind of a hard time with it too, except that I think maybe it's kind of setting us up for a lot of things that are gonna come that are coming on, because the last thing was Tara's voice saying they haven't even begun yet. So and each of their dreams, this cheese man. I'm still confused about the cheese man.
That's the real big bad.
Yeah, that's right. That was the big bad of the season.
The power of dairy.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, all right, he comes and everything, but I do like. I think the best part for me is when they show up to Joyce's to watch movies because they're too wired to sleep,
and then they all are asleep.
Yeah, that even before the credits start, they're asleep. They're all asleep with these, and they all have these different, not very nice dreams. They're all kind of creepy dreams, and nothing seems to make sense, and all the weird Giles getting scalped, and just all kinds of weird shit that happened in this Restless. So I just think it was a very I agree. I think it was kind of a strange way to end the season, unless they just couldn't think of anything else after the initiative. After they took care of the initiative and Adam. But yeah, I thought it was a very strange episode.
Okay, Carol.
I have to first say how much I loved Primeval, because I enjoyed the initiative storyline. I liked the whole concept of science trying to absorb the paranormal, and of course failing miserably.
Right. Yeah, they didn't do a very good job.
Right, but I thought it was a really interesting construct for them to play with and stuff. So when they have Primeval and we have the Scoobies doing this incredible spell, and we see Buffy as we've never seen her before, and she rips out, Adam's uranium heart and everything, and they blow it all up, and you think they just destroyed it all. Like, what comes next? How do they do something after that? So it was really interesting to then fall back to this seemingly quieter kind of episode, but where the initiative was all like, big spell, big explosions, big. This was all, very internal and quiet, and let's explore everybody's brain, as they, they're each kind of dealing with their own senses of inadequacies and things in their dream, like Willow with the stage fright and everything, but yet feeling the stalking of that primal force, that they had inadvertently awakened. It's certainly the trippiest episode, I think, of
That's
Buffy.
true. It could get a point for that.
Yeah, it's amazing how they just kind of have this random stuff. I mean, I love Xander's when he's like, first Joyce is coming on to him, and he's like, I'm a Confortador, and then he's at Apocalypse Now, and and it's Snyder's thing.
Oh God, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I watched that again as I was getting ready, and I totally had forgotten that was Snyder, and it was just beautiful. It was just a beautiful moment. So they have all of this really great intense stuff, and then Buffy finally actually fighting with the first Slayer and realizing that in fact there was all of this background and depth that she didn't know. And I think it is the whole positioning. Of course, now we know, with the beginning of the 5th season, but even without knowing, they clearly were like, we have completely put this aside and we're now setting up for something big and new, and you don't even know what it is. It's just gonna, knock your socks off kind of thing. And so the way, the incredible creative trippiness of it, and the fact that they yet, even after destroying Adam, they were nonetheless fighting for their lives as they're sitting on the couch watching movies, was really powerful. And I really, really enjoyed it for both of those aspects.
Davior.
Yeah, It's never been an episode that's worked for me. I didn't like it originally, and I haven't liked it in rewatching the show of the past years. I get it. I appreciate the experimentation of it, but yeah, I just think it's a very interesting way to end a season, particularly after you have this whole thing with the initiative. And sure, I mean it's the thing that gives us the first insight into the first, that gives us the insight into the first time we see the first Slayer, which is cool. But I wish there was, I don't know, maybe a more interesting overall story way to do that. So yeah, it's just never been one of my favorite episodes. I will not say it's bad, because again, it's a fun experiment, but just where it comes in the season, yeah, it just never worked for me.
Okay. Yeah, I've always found it I've always been kind of a little lukewarm to it myself. And I get what you mean. Marks, bring us home.
Sure. So it was a weird season, but the initiative, I do a lot of organizational, secret group stuff in my writing, so I'm prone to liking that a little bit. And I play tested the Buffy and Rope and Angel RPGs, and they had an initiative handbook, which never got published, unfortunately. So I'm a little partial to initiative because of that, I guess, too. So I was cool with the initiative in general, but it was weird that they ended it the episode before, but it was a powerful ending. Maybe they blew all the budget money on it.
Right.
But,
yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
All they could afford was the cheese.
Yeah, they can only afford cheese. That's what somebody probably joked. It's like, all we can afford is cheese for catering now. And then there's a cheese guy. So it is a weird, if it wasn't the finale, I would like it more. But I do appreciate and do like the experimentation of it, the really elaborate transitions from scene to scene they do, this weird dream logic, because we get dreams in other shows all the time, but they don't really feel like dreams. They just feel like they just changed filtering and say some stuff or whatever. This is like really weird, trippy dreams. These dreams are really trippy usually. And the one I can kind of see why. One thing story wise why they would do this is because they needed a big drawback for them going Captain Planet at the end to fight Adam, because otherwise why not do that again, right? Why not tap into God mode next to Big Bad? This at least gave them a big reason why they probably should never try that again, but also taught them that they're strongest as a team, and and they can accomplish great things together, and gave us the first Slayer look, which would be really hard to explain any other way. So that was nice.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, the positioning of it as a finale is kind of weird. I think it automatically makes you skeptical of it. And then my only other problem with it besides that was I thought the resolution was really simple. Like Buffy just like, I'm ignoring you, and it was just like, it needed a little more than that for them to get out of the stream.
Right. The fact that she says you aren't the source of me, and then all of a sudden she's gone. I know. I thought, did I miss something? Is there something wrong with my DVD?
Yeah, it was a quick fix.
Yeah.
But kudos on them, all the awesome dream stuff, and I used the cheese guy later, so thanks for that.
Yeah, you got the cheese guy in your own fiction. So yeah, and Renita commented that she liked hearing about the little speck of Slayer mythos that was added in, and yes, the first Slayer.
Yeah.
And I have to add one thing, and that is that we know that we all dream, but we don't always remember what we dream. I had a terrible dream last night, or like early this morning. I stay up really late, so there's no telling. It was probably like other people may have already been up in the morning. But anyway, I had a terrible dream while I was asleep that my husband had to calm me down from. And it occurred to me, I thought, is it because I watched Restless last night? I did, so that
maybe,
yeah.
Even though it was unconnected to the show or anything. But I want to thank everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I want to thank everyone who tuned in, everyone who, and Renita, you always get a big thumbs up, and thank you from all of us for engaging with us. For anyone who watches it later, we appreciate it. And excuse me. That dream thing had me worked up. Next month we will be discussing season 5 on, I believe it's the 23rd of February, and on February 1st there will be an interview with Ben Aronovich, an author interview with Ben Aronovich posted, which I did yesterday. I was very excited. So in any case, thank you everyone, participants, those watching, and Renita, who does both. We appreciate you very much. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thanks all.
Good night.
Night.